we are working on something. We can sing a chorus. He's able, I know he's able, I know my Lord is able to carry me through. He's able, I know he's able, I know my Lord is able to carry me through. He healed the broken-hearted and the captive free. He made the lame to walk again and caused the blind to see. That's why he's able, I know he's able, I know my Lord is able to carry me through. Anaweza, Yesu wetu anaweza mambo yote. Bwana anaweza, Yesu wetu anaweza mambo yote. Bwana tumsifu Mungu wetu, anaweza yote, ni mlinzi mwema, rafiki wa karibu. Bwana zamani nilipokuwa mtoto, nilinena kama mtoto, nilikula kama mtoto, niliyoyatenda ni ya utoto. Sirudi nyuma, nimekuwa mzima, maisha mapya ndani ya Yesu. Chanuka ndani yake Yesu, kuwa mtoto wa kiroho, imarika kwa msingi wa neno, chakula bora cha kiroho. Piga tu asonga mbele, mpaka lini mtoto? Furaha usherehekee, maisha mapya ndani ya Yesu. Chanuka ndani yake Yesu, kuwa mtoto wa kiroho, imarika kwa msingi wa neno, chakula bora cha kiroho. Piga tu asonga mbele, mpaka lini mtoto? Furaha usherehekee, maisha mapya ndani ya Yesu. Away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. gentle cross, where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. Oh, that old rugged cross, so despised by the world, has a wondrous attraction for me. For the dear Lamb of God left his glory above to bear it to dark Calvary. So I'll share the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the
Happy Sabbath. Happy day. I'm really sorry about that. We were trying to work on some logistics there, but it's all good now. My name is Brenda Kwamboka, and I'll be your speaker for the evening for at least less than an hour. So I'm Brenda Kwamboka once again. I'm a member of this church. I'm a lawyer, an advocate trainee. I work at LAC Advocates, and I also work at an organization called Women in ADR. So basically, it's an organization where we empower women in the legal space, especially in the ADR sector. Besides that, I'm a certified professional mediator, an arbitrator in training, and many more. I can't finish my CV. So today, I was told it's Religious Liberty Sabbath, and I'll be taking you through religious liberty in our 2010 Constitution. So basically, I'm taking you through your religious liberty in a legal aspect. Yeah, not in the Christian, but now legal aspect. Basically, knowing your legal rights in the Constitution in terms of your religion. Yes. And what is religious liberty, or rather freedom of religion? So this is the right of individuals to hold and practice their religious beliefs or to choose no religion at all. So basically what I mean is you have the choice to choose any religion you want or not choose any religion. Just say, I do not believe in anything, I'm an atheist, or I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, all that. And what's the importance of religious freedom? We like to link all our arguments towards to jurisprudence. So basically, jurisprudence is an area of law where we focus on the philosophy of law, basically the theory of law. And with that, there's a philosopher we call John Locke, and he's known as the father of liberalism. So basically, in the medieval times, or rather in those years, the 18th century, the 17th century, 16th century, there was a lot of, how will I say this? Basically, it was either one religion and then there will be discrimination towards other religions. So basically, during that time, it was mostly during the Roman Empire, and it went towards the Catholic era, and there was a lot of persecution during that time. So those are the times, the medieval times is when now we started having these people we call jurists, those times. So we normally have naturalism, positivism, liberalism, all that. So we have John Locke, now who is the father of liberalism, and he championed the spirit of toleration of plural religious belief and the shift towards recognizing freedom of conscience. That's when the freedoms started erupting. Now we have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all that. And now this is the historical backdrop of it. So just as I said, we have the time where the early centuries where we had the persecution of minorities, and then we had the Dark Ages, the era of spiritual darkness. We also had now the Reformation and the Enlightenment now and then now we have our modern era. Now when we have our constitutional protections. And you can actually get all this information in The Great Controversy. I believe most of you have read that book. It actually shows you how Christianity came to be until where we are at this point. From the Dark Ages, the Apostles' times, to the time where the medieval times when we had the Roman Empire, and then when we had kingdoms, until now when we have now constitutional freedoms. And this is how our religious groups are. Our religious groups are currently in Kenya, so we have Christianity, which is 85.5%. So under Christianity, we have the Protestants, we have the Catholic, which make 20% of it. We have the evangelical group, which is 20.4%, and we have AIC, which is 7%. For us as SDs, we are normally in the Protestant aspect of it, the 33.4%. We also have the Islam, which is 10.9%, and this is they have strong presence, especially in the coastal regions and the northeastern parts, now where we think of the Swahilis. We also have in the northeastern parts the Somalis, the Boranas, all that, now the Muslims. We also have the traditional groups, or rather indigenous, and these are the Maasai, Samburus, Turkana communities. Now what we know as our ancestors, or rather our ancestral worship before colonialism came in, where you will hear people worshiping, facing towards a mountain, worshiping a tree, a mahogany tree, and all that. We also have Hinduism, but the Baha'i and Buddhism. I believe you all know the Hindus. And then the Baha'is, it's a peculiar group where people don't really believe in a certain doctrine. It's just a group of people coming together with one purpose, basically believing in humanity. How do we make the world better? Not as a religious, or rather not believing in something, but basically coming together as various groups that we do not really believe in certain doctrines, but we believe in a better humanity. We also have the Buddhists. So basically the Buddhists are also from Asia, but they also constitute a minority part of the Kenyan community. We also have the others, the Sikhs, the atheists. I believe you all know the Atheist Association of Kenya. And now we have the unaffiliated individuals. They don't say they're atheists, they're not Christians, they're not Muslims, they're just there. So those are the religious groups that we have in our country. And then now Kenya before the 2010 Constitution. So before the 2010 Constitution, we had the 1963 Constitution, otherwise known as the Independence Constitution. And yes, it guaranteed freedom of conscience and belief, but our freedoms back then were quite limited. That was before 2010. Limited in terms of the government will get really involved with the religion part of it. Especially we'll see the government will interact mostly with the church, like major decisions, the church will be involved. And as much as we had freedom of religion, it wasn't as progressive as it is right now, of which I'll get there. We also had the Qadhi's court that time. The Qadhi's court is basically the court dealing with the Islam. So the Muslims use the Sharia law. They don't, when it comes to their civil matters, so basically marriage, personal lives, even succession. So succession is basically when you die and then your family inherits. So basically inheritance. So it will deal with your civil life. And then we had the Societies Act. So basically up until now we have the Societies Act that governs churches. So basically registration of churches or civil organizations, all that. And just as I mentioned, the government maintained close relationships with the church. And then there was a lot of marginalization, especially among the Muslims. It's there until now, but then back then it was so hard for them, considering whenever you'll see a Muslim, you will definitely think of Al-Shabaab, which is the same thing even in the US. Like Muslims are kind of seen as terrorists. So as I said, back then it was really hard for the religious groups to have their freedom. Yes, it was recognized, but it wasn't as progressive as it is right now. So normally a decision that was decided in court. So for example, here you see Ndanu Mutambuki and 19 others versus Minister for Education 2007 EKLR. So this is a case that was in court. So in this matter, it was basically a constitutional petition on the religious minorities in the country. And in this matter, it was regarding the uniform requirement for Muslims in school. It wasn't actually for Muslims, it was for this, how do you call them? Mokorinos or something. They wear the headscarves in schools. So one of the parents went to court, or rather a group of parents and interested parties went to court, was that the schools are actually discriminating them for not allowing them to wear headscarves in schools, yet it's their religious right. The same way as us as SDAs or in schools, we expect that our day is respected. On Saturdays, you definitely expect a school will give you a chance to go to church and worship. But now in this case, it was regarding the outfit. Now wearing headscarves in schools, which was not part of the school uniform. And they were using the old constitution back then. As you can see, this is 2007, before our 2010 constitution. And the petition was actually dismissed. This was a constitutional petition because in such a situation, now in that era, the constitution wasn't as liberating to tell you that you are allowed to exercise freedom of religion, which includes also your beliefs. So in this case, it was actually dismissed because the judge was like, so there's no way we're allowing you to continue wearing headscarves. But then came the 2010 Constitution. So the 2010 Constitution came with the various articles, as you can see, which is the next slide. So basically, Article 8 was introduced into our Constitution to clearly state that Kenya has no state religion. Previously, as much as it wasn't expressly stated, Kenya, especially the Kenyan government, will likely adhere to principles and kind of see ourselves as Christians, all of us. But then Article 8 came in and it expressly stated that we as Kenyans, okay, not we as Kenyans, but Kenya as a state, there is no state religion. So the Kenya as it is right now, it's a secular state. We are not, like, we will not say this is a Muslim nation or this is a Christian nation. It's just a secular state. And then now with Article 8 came Article 32. Now the first one on the top, if you could just move to the next slide. We have freedom of religion. So basically it states that every person has the right to freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, and opinion, and to manifest any religion in practice, worship, or observance. And I've kind of paraphrased it, but there's also a part that states that you shall not force someone to adhere to your religion. So basically what it says that you have that individualism, or rather you have that right or that freedom to choose whatever religion you want in life. And then now came Article 27. It's the next slide. Article 27 on non-discrimination. So this basically prohibits discrimination based on religion, among other factors. So we normally have discrimination based on age, discrimination based on race, ethnicity, but because this is a religious liberty Sabbath, we are focusing on religion. So it basically prohibits discrimination based on religion in access to institutions, employment, or facilities. And then now we have Article 56, minority protection, which mandates affirmative action programs to ensure minorities and marginalized groups are represented and protected. So an example of a minority group will be, for example, yes, the SJ Church is really expanding right now, but there's a time we were the minority. You'll go to a school and you're just like two in a class or two in that school. So as much as we are many, we are also few at the same time, if you get me, if you compare with the population that is in this country. So it's the state's mandate to ensure that the affirmative programs to ensure that we also enjoy our rights as an SDA church or any other religious group that exists in Kenya. Besides our constitution, Kenya is also a party to various international conventions. We call them conventions or treaties. So an example is the ICCPR. And we also have the UDHR, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So that's the legislative framework of our religious freedom in the country. And with that came the landmark court decisions. As I said, we as lawyers like using case laws. Case laws are just judicial precedents which we use to convince someone why we need a decision to be made in our favor. So the first one, these are the landmark cases that we normally even use in schools. So we have the first one, which is Mohammed Fugicha versus Methodist Church and three others. It's a 2016 case. As you can see, the dates, these are progressive land cases, progressive court decisions because they came after 2010 Constitution. So, for example, the first one was regarding this Muslim girl. So if you have gone to a Muslim school or if you have just seen Muslim girls coming from school, they normally have their headscarves, or rather it's called the hijab, white ones, and then they usually wear white trousers underneath their school uniforms. So this was a Methodist school, and the parents had taken their kids, his girls to that school, but they were not allowed to wear the hijabs and the trousers because apparently, according to the school rules, you should be uniformity. But then the court now in this case actually allowed it and stated that it's their religious freedom and it's guaranteed under Article 32, as I mentioned, on the religious freedom of religion and beliefs and conscience and all that. And it also rejected the national march going on in the other compound, and there's a wall just in front of us. For me, I'll be too short to see the other side of the wall. But the 6.5%, so there's normally positive discrimination, negative discrimination. I hope you guys are getting me there. Yes. And then now, one that's linked to our church is the saying no. As long as your kid consented to come to this school, we are not allowing him or her to keep the Sabbath, which is Saturday for us. So we'll have to conform to their own way of worship. But now for this case, the court affirmed and reinforced the protections for SDA students regarding the Saturday worship. And after this case, we'll actually realize that most schools are more open to allowing us to have our Saturday worship, or rather our Sabbath worship. We also have the AG and two others versus Miyogo. It's a 2025 case, basically last year. It was regarding this KDF soldier who was dismissed and imprisoned because he refused to work on a Saturday in their camp. And when the matter went to court, the Court of Appeal basically stated that, okay, normally it's the High Court, depending on the nature of the case, And then we have the Court of Appeal, and then it ends at the Supreme Court. And we also have subordinate courts, but it all matters with jurisdiction. That's a story for another day. But in this matter, the matter started in the High Court. The guy was basically arguing that he was dismissed and he was imprisoned because he refused to work on a Saturday. But then the court later on stated that now when the matter went to the Court of Appeal, it basically stated that everyone has the freedom of religion and one should be allowed to keep their day. If Saturday is your day, then it's your day. You should not dismiss someone just because of a Saturday, and they're even willing to work on a Sunday to, all that. It happens even in employment. So yeah, so those are the landmark decisions. But every general rule has an exception. We don't have, your right is not absolute. Your Bill of Rights is in the Chapter 4 Constitution, and I normally tell people as much as we expect our fellow lawyers to argue our cases for us, at least know Chapter 4 of the Constitution, which is on the Bill of Rights. So just know even Chapter 4, and I would actually advocate for the government to include it into the school curriculum. Basically just knowing your fundamental human rights, just the basic human rights. And yes, our rights are not absolute. You might have freedom of speech, but it's not absolute. What do I mean not absolute? Like it's not a key way for you to just say anything you want. You might be inciting the nation, you might be, it might lead to violence. And in such matters, there's Article 24, and we call it the limitation clause. So Article 24(1) clearly states that a right or fundamental freedom may only be limited by law to the extent that the limitation is reasonable and justifiable in an open democratic society. Keywords: based on human dignity, equality, and freedom. Legal limitations on religious expression serve to balance individual freedoms with societal interests and public safety. So even as you're exercising your rights as a Kenyan, you should at least you should know there are limits to your rights. We only have a few rights in the Constitution under Article 25, which are absolute. That includes right to habeas corpus and the rest, which is a story for another day again. And one of the limitations, now one of the examples is religious extremism, which is under public safety. It's the first sector that you see on the screen. So basically the law prohibits any religious activity that leads to violence or extremism so that we maintain public safety or public security. And a good example is the Shakahola massacre, which happened in 2023. I'm pretty sure all of you know about the Shakahola thing, where this pastor called Mackenzie, it's more of a brainwashing thing where you tell people you should just starve yourselves to death so that you go to heaven. And they started with the kids, and then the unmarried people, the married ones, and then they finished with the religious leaders. And it led to over 400 people dying. Actually, I'm pretty sure they did not even recover everyone, because up until now we have 429 exhumed bodies. And some of the family members who had not known where their loved ones had gone to, up until today, they have not yet identified their loved ones. And yeah, there was also another one in the early 2000s where people are told to go hide in a bunker because the world is gonna end or something. So basically, yes, you have your right to religious freedom, but there are normally situations where the government has to come in. And also in schools, you will realize that there are restrictions on display of religious symbols. A school cannot just put like a symbol like an SDA logo or the AIC logo, and because it has to maintain the neutrality in it, so that because we have many students in that school that are not really of that denomination, so we have to ensure that we maintain a comfortable environment for every citizen. And the courts have decided on some number of cases now in the limitation aspect of it. And a good one is Republic versus Kenya High School, and another ex parte SMY. So the reason why there is SMY, this is just on a side note, There are parties that normally don't like their names online or in the public space. So you'll see letters, especially in Children Matters. And this was a judicial review case, so that's why you're saying it's a Republic versus Kenya High School. Now the person who actually did the complaint was SMY, but now because it's a judicial review application, it now changes. Okay, sorry for about that, but I just like explaining why it's that way. So in this matter, okay, this was my school actually. So in our school, they do not allow Muslims to have hijabs again, just like the first case I was telling you about, the Muhammad Fukicha versus Methodist Church. They do not allow hijabs or trousers. They like uniformity, so everyone should look the same. Your skirt should be the same height, same color of blouse, blah, 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 all that. And in this matter, it was actually taken to court for them to be allowed to wear them in school. And the court basically took the approach before the 2010 Constitution, but you can also tell by the date of it. It was 2012. This was just 2 years after the 2010 Constitution. And before 2010, our judges were more of conservative than progressive. So you'll find judges sticking to the cultural aspect of life, or rather the law as it is. So these are people called positivists, all that. We also have idealists, yeah. So in this matter, it was taken to court, but this one was dismissed because the judge took the view that the kids consented to come to this school, so they should adhere to their school code and rules. And it took the Ndanu Mutambuki case, like it just took that route. I believe you remember the case I mentioned, the first case. Yeah, but then later on, the law kept changing in terms of now how courts are deciding their matters, and now the cases now that I mentioned, the Mohammed, the Seventh-day Adventist case, the Miyogo case, and all that. Yeah, so those are the cases that we have. Now back to the situational analysis of how the country is at the moment, from 2023 to 2026. I took a 4-year gap of it, like a 4-year timeline. So number one, I mentioned the Shakahola massacre. And because of this, the government actually wanted to introduce an act, or rather a bill, which will evolve into an act, which was the Religious Organizations Bill 2024. But then there was a lot of triggers from, not really from our church, but many churches, because the problem with the government regulating our freedom of religion is sometimes it leads to over-regulation. Because if you see under this bill, or which was to become an act if they accepted it, was we will have an office, or rather a commission, where people will send in their complaints, and then we'll have an umbrella organization, like how we have Matatu circles. So now the umbrella organization will come up with rules which every church will have to follow, you see. And if we don't do that, now it leads to cases, and then basically the effect of this all will be that we will not be able to have the freedom that we want. But then if you look at the positive side, you also see like the government wanted us to just have churches that are sane, or rather churches where people are not just controlled, you know. Because if you see in our society, especially in Kenya, you will realize these churches where they are really extreme in how in their practices. It's normally the people who are, people who are really desperate, or rather have just given up on life, or they are just poor, and they just want anything that will give them hope in life. So that's where our pastors take advantage. And yes, there's a good side to that bill, but then you will see the negative side outweighed the positive side of it. And then now that's the bill that I was talking about. So it did not go to the next level. And then we also have the mandatory religious educational prayers. So especially in the Catholic schools, you will find kids are mandated to have prayers in the morning, not the prayers, the normal prayers that we normally have, the Catholic prayers, the masses and all that. And there were Jehovah's Witnesses in this school. Now this is the Philip Okoth case versus St. Anne's Primary School. It's a 2023 case. And they took the case to court, and it was held that kids, like, basically, as human beings, we should not be mandated to attend masses because it was unconstitutional. It was against our freedom of religion, and it was coercive and violated the Constitution. But then for such matters, it's normally how good your lawyer is. How good does your lawyer know how to argue his or her case for you? So for such situations, especially if you're going for a constitutional petition and you want that right to go in your, if you want that case to go in your favor, it's normally best to find a very good lawyer. But you'll have to pay some really good money. And at the end of the day, you'll get some good damages. You normally have general damages, exemplary damages, declaration of rights. Some good money comes out of it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about your rights. Yeah, and if you remember our former AG, Githu Muigai, Professor Githu Muigai, he actually proposed that all churches, all religious leaders should have at least a certificate in theology, so that you don't keep having these pastors like Pastor Mackenzie, Ezekiel Mutua, who just decide to, do whatever they feel like, because to them, there's something about charismatic people, narcissistic people, and being able to draw a crowd towards them. But at the end of the day, you find people do not use their common senses to ensure that whatever is happening to them is actually, good for them. So that's why Professor Githu Muigai wanted us to have a regulation for theology qualifications and all that. So that's the landscape for us since 2023 until now. And finishing my presentation, so in conclusion, religious freedom is your fundamental human right under the Constitution, under the international human rights treaties. But again, you should realize it's not absolute. So everything to moderation, or rather, make sure you know your limits to everything. And also, at the same time, it's important to distinguish between legitimate religious practices and those that involve human rights violations, because there's an argument that the things that happened in Shakahola is actually a genocide. You see, something like that, because why are you killing a mass of people based on religious matters or age matters, all that. And we must also embrace liberal thinking that promotes religious diversity and eliminates intolerance and discrimination. What do I mean? I basically mean that as much as you are proud to be a member of a certain denomination, you should be open to tolerating other, or rather tolerating is such a big word, but you should be open to other denominations in that you should not just see your fellow AIC brother, ACK brother, and the first thing you do is discriminate against them or start rebuking them for their beliefs or their practices. But I'll implore us to use the tool of persuasion. By using the tool of persuasion, I basically mean your deeds, or rather your words, should lead towards a positive outcome than a negative outcome. And finishing, I'll finish with the words of Judge Dixon. It's an English case, and it states, I'll just read it verbatim. A truly free society is one which can accommodate a wide variety of beliefs, diversity, and tastes and pursuits, customs and codes of conduct. A free society is one which aims at equality with respect to the enjoyment of fundamental freedoms. Freedom must surely be founded on respect for the inherent dignity and the inviolable rights of the human person. The essence of the concept of freedom of religion is the right to ascertain such religious beliefs as a person chooses, the right to declare religious beliefs openly and without fear of hindrance or reprisal, and the right to manifest religious belief by worship and practice or by teaching and dissemination. Yes. And my question goes to the audience, or rather the congregation. What should be our role as a church to ensure religious liberty in the society? Anyone with a point on that? Just even one answer will really change someone's life out there. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Brenda, for the presentation. Yes, what should be our role as a church to ensure religious liberty in the society? Where we live, this is the surrounding is the society. So our role as a church, and for this case, I know maybe you are focusing on the Adventist church. Yeah. So as our role is to empower the society with the values that we have borrowed, the ones that you've learned. By you being a member of the church, how you've benefited. So someone outside there who is maybe in the mud clay is not able to know what to do, is not able to make decisions on maybe which religion, which church to go. For our work is not, we are not going to convert them to join us, but just train them, to empower them, tell them about Jesus Christ, who is the Savior, and tell them about we have freedom to worship. And we are looking at our young people who go to school, our children who go to school, that they can be able to speak out, that they can be able to seek for help. Even the church has the office that they can be able to, if they want to extend or they want to be held, maybe they need some help where they are coerced to work, to go to school, to attend classes on Sabbath, that they can be able to get assistance from the church. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda, for the presentation. My comment would be that the role of the church, the most important role, according to me, would be to point the true religion, pointing people to Christ. Because if you look at Christ, there is no one who was compelled to follow Christ. Everyone was at peace to follow Christ. And if we create such an environment, then there will be no problem in Christianity. That's my take.
Happy Sabbath. Na yangu haiko mbali nao kwamba what should be our roles as a church to ensure religious liberty. Vile umedefine religious liberty ati uko huru, either to belong in a church or not to. So to the society, lengo ni moja, akiwa Mkatoliki, akiwa Protestant churches, akiwa maybe Muislamu, I don't know what they teach, but they should be taught that wherever they are, they should belong to one maybe religion. For example, being an SDA. Si amesema sisi ni minorities, atuko wengi. Also, as an SDA, I should portray a character, a distinct character. Kwamba, if in my place of work, I should behave in a certain way such that people will ask which religion I belong to. Then the main thing, as Betty said, and my sister Maggie, ni kwamba lengo ni moja towards the teaching of Christ and the second coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Yes.
Thank you, Brenda, for the presentation. I believe most of us, we've got something new that we didn't know before, so thank you very much. For me, how our church would ensure religious liberty is by respecting and upholding the fundamental human rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. I think that's just it for me. One, when we respect and we uphold those rights, those fundamental human rights, then we are good because we belong in a society. We should be able to respect every other person's belief and customs and way of living. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Harriet. I wanted to support my friend there. So, what is religious liberty is the freedom of worship. So, what is our role as Seventh-day Adventists? I think as Seventh-day Adventists, we should respect everyone's religion. Even if someone is a Muslim or a Buddhist, you should just respect it. Because by respecting it and you living according to your religious rights, it will bring that person to, he or she will admire you. Like, how is this person so kind? And how is this person respecting my religion? Let me see what this person is doing. What makes this person be the way he or she is. By respecting other people's religion, will be kind to others, and that will be a way of bringing those people who don't know the true way who don't know about the Seventh-day Adventists, to bring them back. Because even if, when you read from the book of Joshua, Joshua told the people to choose today whom they will serve. So we see even from the Bible, there was freedom of worship. So we shouldn't force anyone to be an SDA or a Catholic. Just let them choose. Show them the love, and from the love they will see who is this Christ that you're serving. Thank you.
Anyone else before I continue? Or we are done?
Nashukuru. Yangu I was just wondering, nimeona watu wameenda court wakisema watoto wao waruhusiwe kushiriki siku ya Sabato. But now the other side again, mahali ambapo wa Sabato ndio wengi, Waadventista ndio wengi, wale wengine wako na nafasi ya kuwa na makanisa yao. Because I think tunaposema liberty, then it should be two-way. And I think that inakuwa tricky sometimes kwamba mahali Waadventista wako hata wale wengine hawapumui. So it has to be two-way. And based on the Bible, hata Mungu haturashimishi kumwabudu. Yeah, he says this is the way, but you can choose to take it or not. Yeah, so I think we are also not very, very good in Africa giving others the liberty that they need. So we also need to grow as much as we may not appreciate or accept wengine vile wana practice their faith, but we accept them the way that they do it. Over time, wakitaka kucha ni sawa. If they don't want to, it isn't your problem. Si wako ni wa Mungu. Asante.
Mwalimu, sijui kama ulikuwa umemaliza your presentation ama ni So can I ask a question at this moment ama ningoje kwanza? Okay.
So hata mimi wacha nijaribu kuchangia kidogo. Kuna swali ambayo Elda Kinyozi ameuliza, hiyo ya kama like sisi wana Adventista tukienda kwa hizo shule zingine tupewe fursa. Kwa nini kwa hii side ya in the Adventist faith kama like tunapea wengine pia fursa. Ni swali tricky kidogo kwa sababu tunajua that's the right thing ya kufanya. Okay, kama ni kuwapea fursa waweze kumwomba Mungu siku ya maybe on Sunday. Tunajua that's not the right thing. So inaweza kuwa ngumu kwetu kuwaruhusu. Ni kama maybe tuseme Israel walikuwa wanajua kwamba kumwabudu Mungu ndio the right thing, na pia kukuwe na provision ya kuabudu Baal kwa sababu kuna watu wataki kuabudu Mungu. So unaona hapo Mungu hakuwa anafurahi. So it's a tricky thing, but since we know the right thing, ni vizuri to stick to the right thing na mambo itakuwa mzuri. So on religious liberty, the role of the church, umetufunza hapa na yale ambao wengine pia wanajua. Tuweze kwenda huko nje, tufunze kila mtu, ndio whenever tuko na information tutaweza kuwa empowered. Asante.
Happy Sabbath. Happy day. So, according to me, the role of the church about religious liberty and aggressiveness in terms of kunizi mashule that another church do ilipigania so that HSDA came into those schools. So there are schools maybe around us, kama high school, ama primary. Like the teachers and the students say tutaenda shule kama for example like Murumshiri. Isipokuwa Murumshiri iko under Nairobi Central, but tuseme there's also another high school yenye ijulikani, si ndio? And then tuseme we'll fight for this church because in as much as inaweza kuwa maybe it's a Protestant institution, huwezi kosa mtu mmoja ama wawili ambao ni wa SDA. And maybe through those people we can also get to influence other people. So for me the role for the church ni kufanya hiyo public campaign with that aggressiveness kwamba lazima tukue na kanisa hapa. So yeah.
I believe that was all, unless there's someone I left out. Okay. Well, all your views are so significant and meaningful, and they've also, it's also part of what I had as my answers. And I'll first mention mine and then I'll comment on the ones that you have mentioned. So our role as a church to ensure religious liberty in the society, number one, to proactively advocate for freedom of conscience. This basically means protect the rights of individuals to worship according to their beliefs and promote religious liberty awareness. Number two, building relationships with public or government officials and organizations, basically to discuss religious freedom concerns. And we all understand that if you do not be aggressive, as John said, we might be left out. And this freedom that you have now, it might easily be reversed in just one co-decision or a law, that easy. And number three, educate members on their constitutional rights. So basically, like today we have our Liberty Sabbath, so organize liberty events, protect Sabbath observance, just as you mentioned, and use media for advocacy. Number four, about this grace, love, and respectful dialogue. I'm trying to look for the right word for it, but as a result of our parents, grandparents, hitting the nail on the head, but what I really mean is we should find ways of approaching our fellow Kenyans who are not SDAs and other against, because the first thing someone thinks about me as Brenda once they hear I'm an SDA is, she's an SDA, or she's so judgy. They feel like we do not deserve heaven or something like that. And it's all because of the approach we used previously to tell others of our church or the correct church principles. So make sure that as you approach your brother and sister, it's in a good manner, because it becomes really hard for your children and great-grandchildren to interact with the society once the society learns that they are SDAs. I hope you guys are getting what I mean. I don't know that you're getting, but the thing is we should find ways of approaching our fellows. Out here, it becomes really hard for someone to even declare their SDA or someone from another denomination based on how we approached them previously. And number 5, build credibility and trust. Basically showcase your contributions to the society and even how you act as a person. Those were my 5 points. And with that, I would like to say thank you. Any questions or comments? But I'm done.
Thank you, Mwalimu Brenda. Umetufunza vizuri na ningependa ku-comment that in the society now where our schools are included, we have an emerging issue. Maybe you can comment on emerging issues on religious liberty, because we have atheists. And I want to ask a question. If an atheist come to our church and they are busy converting, brainwashing our members, what is our role? How do we approach? Because that is what is happening. In universities, there are people who have come telling the university students that there is no God. Okay, that is the question to the church. How do you approach, how do you deal with that? Of course, I know you will tell me, you will give it time, you will do your, but is it happening? Have you seen it happening? Is your neighbor affected? Is our church going through such? The other thing is the Article 24, subsection 1, on the fundamental, the human rights. So which other articles can we refer to apart from the Constitution of Kenya 2010? Maybe when we want to refer to the religious liberty. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Okay, my question was about how do we give liberty to other religions? Because at some point we usually feel our religion SDA is the right one, or is the one which is worshiping in the right way. Yet we tend to lure other people who worship in different religions, as in we want to justify we are the real religion. So are we exercising religion liberty? Or in what way are we going to reach out to them in a way that we are not going to, they don't take us like we are trying to convert them to our religion, because now we have been told that we should respect and also advocate for other people who worship in different religions. In what way are we going to talk to them, or rather preach to them, without tending to be like we are coercing them to our kind of worship? That was my question. I'm asking, like, do we really exercise religion liberty if we tend to preach to them that we are the right denomination? That's my question.
Okay, so hiyo swali iko closely related na ile yenye Elder Kinyuzi alikuwa amesema, na kwa maoni yangu mimi naona ni kwa kweli tunafahamu kwamba mafundisho ambayo tunayapata ni ya kweli, si ndio? Na kama kitu ni ya ukweli, tunafaa tuhimize wenzetu waweze kujiunga na mambo ya ukweli. So hatufai kufungia watu wengine ama kuwashurutisha waweze kufanya kitu ambacho tunafanya, lakini tunafaa to create avenues za wao kuweza kuona uzuri ya wao kufanya vile ambavyo tunafanya. Kwa mfano ni kuwaelimisha. Kwa mfano niko na marafiki wawili ambao walizaliwa wao si wa Sabato, lakini walienda shule za Kisabato. Kwa kweli huenda walishurutishwa kuenda kanisani kusikiza miziki ya Kikristo na nini, lakini kwa sasa marafiki hao wawili kwa kweli wanasema wanakiri ya kwamba imani yetu ni ya kweli. Unaona, so niyo kucreate hizo avenues ambazo tayari kanisa imeweza kufanya. Kuna shule kadhaa za Kiadventista, kuna hospitali, lakini sasa shida inatokea kwamba baada ya shule unajua kuna maisha ya kazi na nini. Pia hapo ndio watu wengi wanapotelea, kwa sababu watu unapata Wasabato wengi ikifika wakati wa kazi sasa inabidi wameshurutishwa hata kuacha kanisani. So tunafaa to create hizo avenues za wale ambao si wa imani yetu waweze kujua ukweli na pia waendelee kufuata ukweli. So hiyo ndio maoni yangu.
Happy Sabbath. I'll also answer you is by being kind in the community. Nimeona wengi tumesema kuhusu shule, but we have forgotten that we are coming from community. Now, in our communities, we have different people. So as Christian, how are we going to preach to them? It's just by being kind, how we speak to them, what do we offer, like except giving them, tuseme sasa kama kuna hii program ya GYD yenye inakuanga ya youth, yenye wanapeleka staffs in different schools, except that one. Ni njia ingine gani yenye tunaweza fanya kama SDS ku convince those people is just being kind. Unajua maybe uko reserve watu vile wanakuanga, tuseme maybe on Sabbath people are so kind. Hata mtu anaweza kupata na kusalimia jirani habari, unaona, but ukitoka kwa kanisa ufike huko upate maybe jirani by mistake ng'ombe yake ilifika ikakula mahindi, unasikia mtu akisema sasa hata hii Adventista nitaweka kando, you see. But when you are kind, unatumia aje your words kama sorry, hata kama you people mmezoea, ina help sana. Na maybe how you talk to unajua sisi vijana pia, hawa vijana wenye mnaona kwa mtaa nini, unaongelesha aje? Wewe ndio yule mwenye unaambia maybe your kids, mimi nisikupate ukitembea na mtoto wa fulani. No, show those people love, ndio wajue pia hii kanisa yenye wanaenda ina help, na tukienda huko pia sisi tutakuwa msaada kwa wengine. Yeah.
God is good and all the time. Thank you for the session. Maybe let me add what she said. Apart from being kind, we need to show consistency, and we need also to practice humanity. It goes a long way, because you tend to find people judging us. We tend to behave well on Saturdays only,
But if you practice it consistently, you know, action speaks louder than words. So whatever you do, if you practice it consistently, people will, because here we want to ensure the community joins our religion, not only to ensure it joins, but tujaribu to matendo yetu iambatane with what we preach. Because you tend to find that others judge us wrongly and say that hawa wana behave vizuri on Saturdays peke yake, hizo siku zingine hautawajua. But ndio to prove them wrong, let us have kindness, humanity na consistency in everything that we do. Thanks.
I believe that was all. Okay. I just remembered 2 questions. I couldn't remember the third one. If you could kindly remind me the 2 questions that there are 2 questions. One was on other law, like which other provisions give us the religious thing, and I can't remember the second one.
Oh, the other one was, if we have an intruder, I can say a member has come, maybe a Sabbath school, who is an atheist. Maybe you can tell us what the atheists believe in. And also I commented about in most of the schools, primary schools, secondary schools, universities, there are people who are coming with ideologies that are contrary with the word of God and telling the children that there is no God. So, and then maybe we have had maybe a case in one of our church. So maybe you can enlighten us. What are the emerging issues about religious liberty, quoting the atheist?
Okay. I'll start with the first one on, besides the Constitution, Article 24, which other provisions govern freedom, religious freedom? Okay, Article 24 is actually a limitation clause. It's actually the one that puts a limit on what we can practice as a religious group. The articles that define, or rather are in the scope of freedom of religion are Article 32, which is the main article. It's basically freedom of religion when you look at that one. And then we also have Article 27 of the Constitution, which is on non-discrimination. So basically, it prohibits discrimination based on factors like age, factors like race, ethnicity, religion being one of them. And you can actually go to court for such a thing like non-discrimination because you have been discriminated against. You can there's always an avenue for you. And then Article 8, which I also mentioned, which states that there's no state religion. Basically, Kenya is a secular state. We do not call ourselves a Christian state or a Muslim state. Like, there are states which are totally Muslim. Saudi Arabia totally use Sharia law, such states. But for us as Kenya, there's no religious law that governs us as a state. But vitu kwa ground is different. You'll mostly find it's the Christians who take part in many things. Even in drafting this constitution, there are areas of the constitution like Article 45. And you can clearly tell that Article 45 and Article 35, if I'm not 35, 37, you can tell that there was a religious group which was involved here, especially the Christians. But that's a story for another day. And then Article 56 on minority protection. Now, besides the Constitution, we don't have a specific act that governs religion, like the Religions Act 2025. We don't have that. We basically use the Constitution. We also use the Universal Treaties, the ICCPR, which is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the UDHR, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And Yeah, if you don't, and then you also have the penal code. The penal code is an act that governs criminal activities. So we have misdemeanors and we also have felonies. Misdemeanors are the small crimes and felonies are the big crimes. So in the penal code, you'll actually find that there's a law prohibiting blasphemy. So basically, no one should come calling themselves God or something. They'll just end up in jail. And besides the penal code, now most of the time in such situations where we don't have an act governing a specific area, we just use judicial precedents. That's why I mentioned all the cases that are in court. So normally, even when a judge drafts a judgment, they use the law and they use previous court decisions to come up with a law on it. But for us as now ordinary people, mostly just the Constitution, and you'll find other acts that will support us in a way, but not totally. But you don't have like a specific one on religion. There was one that they wanted to enact, the Religious Organizations Bill, which I mentioned that was to regulate churches. But just like in Rwanda they closed so many churches, very many, because the pastors do not have certificates. But if you go now to the technical aspect of which you can use the Societies Act, which just governs the church, like it will just govern the registration and deregistration of a church, something like that. Yeah. And how to approach, I believe you have given most of the points that I had, but besides that, I'll probably say that now, if an atheist comes to our church, what will we do? Anyone who wants to answer that? Because there are many things you can do, but how I'll see it, probably it's not conducive for someone else, for an atheist coming to our church, but most of the time is basically just using the soft method approach, preaching in a way that they are really convicted, and that's why I said use the tools of persuasion. Make sure you actually you actually implore their emotions, or just, okay, I'll have to say like a trial advocate. There are ways that you use the tools of persuasion to persuade a judge to have a matter in your favor. But for a church, I'll just say your deeds in the church, how you approach the person. The moment he walked in and he said he's an atheist, how did you react to that? How did you approach him after that? Did you just leave him there abandoned just because he said he's an atheist? And that's why you have the Bible. The Bible is actually like our constitution, and it has everything. Just like how Jesus approached the tax collectors, approached the sinners, it's how we should be like Jesus, and find ways of how to. There are many ways, but it's different according to everyone. But for me, I'll just say how you preach, what you preach, how you approach the person really determines a lot. It's the little things that matter. And then how to approach people now outside, yes, as my fellow friends said and fellow churchmates, your deeds, like faith without action is dead. Your actions matter more than words, or rather, action speaks louder than words. And how we are also, again, soft method approach. Do not just go rebuking people. Go there persuading them why this is the right church for them. And at the end of the day, if they're convinced even by how you act around other people, how you do your things, they will definitely end up coming to this church. And if you use the rebellious approach, again, they'll also be rebellious. They won't, in fact, anytime they see an SDA, they'll just be like those people, those Pharisees, or how they call us out here, some of them. But it's all about how we approach them and the methods we use, just the soft method approach. And sometimes you have to be aggressive. If someone is out there trying to convert people and you know it's wrong, converting them into atheism, that's now when your aggressiveness will come in. That's when your Bible should be your shield, and that's when, or is it your sword? The shield, sword, all that. Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's all about how close are you with Christ, how well brought up you are, and if you are really a true Christian. It's nothing technical. It's all about how Jesus guides you in life, and he'll help you be a light to others. Yes. And with that, I'd like to close my presentation and close my case. Thank you.
I think the approach, anybody who has a contrary opinion or perspective katika mambo ya kiimani, the first thing is to understand the person. Huwezi kudili na mtu ambaye hauelewi. Kwa mfano, kama ni, okay, let us use the atheism ambayo tumesema. So, the first thing you must do is research on atheism. Na siku hizi kufanya research si ngumu, it is just on your phone. Just open your phone and check what is atheism. So, understand first an atheist anaamini nini. So once umepata misingi ya huyu mtu na wewe uko na misingi yako ya theism, you believe in God, then you should be able to engage. Ile ambayo inakuwa ngumu ni ujui ya theism ni nini na unataka kutaka mtu ambaye anaamini hivyo. It is impossible. So first of all, understand what the person understands, then use what you know to work with the person. And then there's a principle we use tunasema, don't win the argument, win the person. If you are so knowledgeable, it is very easy to win an argument, but lose the person. So the first thing is to win the person and not the argument. So kuna wakati ambapo utakubali tu, some arguments siende hivyo tu, anargue na unakubali tu, unamwacha hivyo. So over time, you will win the person instead of the arguments. Na hiyo ina apply katika in evangelism of every kind, kwa sababu tunakutana na watu haina nyingi. So always understand what the person understands. That is why we must understand all religions as men, wale wako within us. Yeah, so take your time kujua wanajua nini. Then you are able to interact. Then we also have common grounds. Common grounds. Even that atheist, there is a common ground. Because kama atakwambia kwa mfano kwamba he believes on something much more powerful, then we are also agreeing. I also believe in something much more powerful. So we are agreeing on something. Kama to agree on that, but at least we are agreeing kwamba kuna kifo. We are agreeing kwamba kuna magonjwa. We are agreeing kwamba kuna njaa. You see, we are agreeing on several things. So we can establish a common grounds where we agree. And then we start moving to areas where we disagree. Yeah, so those are the approaches. Lakini inahitaji kwanza we become stable in our faith. Now, there is an area ambayo ulikuwa umeleta Magi kwamba that person is convincing our members or our young people or even our members. Now, the problem in that case we have not fortified our members. Unapata kwamba okay, mtu ni Mwadventista for 10 years, 15 years, lakini knowledge yake iko so shallow. Iko very shallow, such that a small wave ikija tu hivi inamtupa. Yeah. Even without going to atheists, even kuna Waadventista ambao wamekanyaga nje kiasi. We call them offshoots. Akija tu asome tu spirit of prophecy mistari miwili, mtu amefanya nini? Amepepwa, ameenda tu, ameanza kubehave in a very funny manner. Namaanisha ni nini? Ati nilifunzwa tu. We are wrong. Yeah, so not being grounded in our faith, that is very, very dangerous, because anything can move you out very, very fast. So if we are grounded, then we become tolerant, we understand the other people, we use persuasion, then we should be able to minister to other people. Ni hiyo tu kwa sasa. So tunakushukuru. I think let us do vote of thanks now. I think I'm the only one here. The rest should be busy somewhere. Tunasemaje kwa Agwatota? Si amefanya vizuri?